Fat Gay Podcast, where we like to talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name's Don Marshall. I am a big, fat, chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I am a greasy fast food boy. I had fast food breakfast for the first time in years on my way here, and I'm paying the price as we speak.
No.
It's the hash browns, isn't it?
Oh my God. I haven't had those things in years, and my body is
Don't you know you have to wring them out before you eat them?
I forgot.
I always serve Trevor's on little doilies.
Yes.
And sponges.
That are see-through after like 1 minute of a hash brown on them.
My name is Dan Oliverio. I'm an author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And today, I just had a protein bar. I know that sounds boring and so.
But wasn't it a birthday cake flavored one or something?
No, me having a birthday cake flavor?
Well, it's vanilla.
That's all about you. No. You know, I don't even like that flavor.
I don't know, but I see what is it then? I always see the wrapper, it's blue.
This is like chocolate chip oatmeal, which is the protein bar version of like something else.
Huh. I like Trevor's version better. I want a birthday cake. Actually, I just want birthday cake.
Yeah. If birthday cake actually tasted like cake, I'd be fine.
So what is birthday cake flavor?
It is some sort of
It tastes
chemical
like frosting.
It is the chemical concoction that people associate
It tastes like chemical frosting.
with a fake birthday cake.
Yes.
I'm Trevor Keys. I'm a super chub. This morning, I'm a little crepe boy. I had these, I got these little like packaged crepe things that are apparently from France.
Whoa.
They lie like a rug.
They're pretty nice. It's got a little, there's strawberry and then like chocolate hazelnut. They're nice with some coffee.
Nice. Me gusta. My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and this morning I'm a coffee and toast boy. It was pretty simple start today, mostly because I was so tired that I didn't have the energy to make myself anything more exciting than that. But it was very good. We have a very good show for you guys today. Welcome to episode 70. And I don't know. I feel like that should be some kind of milestone. I like the nice even numbers. 70. That's good.
But I feel like it should be 75 as a milestone. That's like the...
Yeah.
That's the diamond show.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's when everybody's supposed to send us diamond presents. Don't forget
everybody
diamond presents.
Send your diamonds to P.O. Box.
We're gonna get glass shards in the mail.
Just don't eat them.
So start a mailbag today.
Yeah, we have a... wait, which one's this one? Yay! Yeah. I'm learning the board.
Is it weird that when I hear an unzipping sound, like mailbag is not the thing that comes to mind?
Oh, really, Don?
I mean, a mailbag, yes, but...
Done, shush.
I'm sorry. Learn the proper Latin names.
So I'm going to read this one mostly because I know nothing. I know nothing about the thing, so I'll just be engaged in that I read it, and then I'll let thank you guys. We had a listener write in who says, "Hey guys, I just finished watching RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars Season 6, Episode 5. It was a fantastic episode, but there were some very clear conversations about being fat, and even a casual mention of chub chaser sex. Woo! Representation. Especially in Untucked, Eureka and Ginger had a very open conversation about being the big girls and constantly feeling that they were being pitted against each other. It was wonderful to see the issues talked about on this kind of stage, particularly to an audience that may or may not value fat lives. I'm sure you got lots of messages about it, but wanted to make sure you knew, and so maybe you could talk about it on the pod. Thanks as always for all you do. Love you guys so much. We love you too.
Yay, that's
Thank you. Thank you for
I wrote back, because we got this on Instagram, and I wrote back to the listener informing them that none of us watched Drag Race.
I was going to ask, is that true?
I think it is true, yeah.
Yeah,
I watched the season with Bianca Del Rio. That was like 6 years ago.
I've definitely seen it. I don't want to say I've never seen it, and it is fun. Like, I don't watch it because I don't like it. I just don't watch it because I don't tend to watch much TV generally. And it's not the first thing I would pick. However, I have definitely seen, especially I think in more recent years, that they have been more inclusive of different body sizes. So that's great. I kind of wish I looked for a clip of this, but obviously it's recent, and so you can't find it unless you're watching the actual episode.
What do you got? I'm not sure what this means in the letter, that the big girls tend to get pitted against each other on the show. Chubs get pitted against each other in life.
I think okay, so let's start with, obviously we haven't seen this segment, and so maybe just everybody go check that out if it's something you're interested in, but I suspect they mean on the show. I think it's like, it's almost that sort of sense of like, oh, there can only be one big girl in the room, so who's it going to be? I mean, the show's a competition anyway, so I don't think it's mean-spirited, but I think there is that element of putting people in their own category and then saying, okay, you two duke it out.
It's like having two larger people on the same show is insulting to the concept of tokenism, and we're only supposed to be a token presence on any show. You know,
well, you wouldn't want the show to turn into something about fat people, for Christ's sake. I mean, one is enough, right, Don?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because the show harps on self-acceptance, and if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anyone else?
But not that much acceptance, for Christ's sake.
I think I don't know. I've because other listeners have written us about RuPaul's Drag Race about topics like this, and I think specifically Eureka has come up, but I think that there's more than meets the eye. Again, we don't watch the show, but I have heard positive things when people talk to us about it.
And this season of All Stars has a lot of big queens. And there was a point where I was like, maybe like we can watch it, or like I can watch it, and we could do like mini-sodes or something. And then I don't know, 3 episodes came out.
Yeah,
and that ship kind of sailed.
Well, I'm wondering if this, whatever the letter writer intended, I'm wondering if some of this does spill into the real world, because there's, in a lot of times for chubs, there's that issue of scarcity, that there just aren't enough chasers to go around. And I will say that on the side of chasers, there is that, you know, ridiculous alpha dog thing of like, no, he's my chub, I pissed on him first. And
is that why they keep coming at me with that strange expression on their face?
Dick first.
Well, I mean, you know, I will be the first one to admit that I have absolutely, if there's a gorgeous fat man in the room, I have no problem taking sloppy seconds. I have no problem with that. I'm fine with that.
Phrasing. Or maybe that's how you meant that.
But no, a lot of chasers are like, no, I saw him first. I'm like, okay, go ahead, go get him first. I'll do something else when, you know, I'll let him up when you're done.
Well, shall we move on to something referencing now? Spoiler warning, I think, because we're probably going to get into it. Anybody who hasn't seen Black Widow, yes. So it was one of the first things we talked about. Actually, I think it was the first thing we ever talked about on the show. Was David Harbour's sort of dad bod and the fat joke that's made about him in the early teaser trailer for Black Widow, where he's like squeezing into the suit, and then somebody's like, "You got fat," and it sparked a whole discussion. But now that the movie's actually out and we've all been able to see it, starting with the actual article on movieweb.com, the headline is David Harbour's Black Widow weight loss received mixed feelings from his wife, Lily Allen. So let's start there, but I do want to eventually talk about the movie and how they handled it in the movie too, because I thought that was interesting.
Well, can I just say from the outset, I am just glad to say or hear that it's not one of these things where he lost weight, which is universally good for everyone in the universe.
Right. Thank God he lost the weight.
You know, maybe he lost weight and people have an opinion about that is not, oh, thank God.
Mm-hmm. I will say, when I read this, it was I had mixed feelings about it because of how David Harbour communicates about his weight.
Yeah,
that's a little problematic. But yeah, let's actually.
I have the quote here.
Yeah.
So he said, "It's a true testament to my undeniable charisma when I say that my wife met me at 280 pounds with this beard and this hair." David Harbour explains. "We went on a date at the Walsley restaurant in London, and she really fell for me at my worst physically and hair-wise."
Which I should hasten to say, I think he was being very facetious when he says the thing about his charisma. Like, he's a good-natured guy. I don't think he was being
no. But what he's saying is, I looked like shit. Look how fat I was.
Yeah, exactly. And she saw past my looks.
Exactly. And I would just, I don't know about your Tumblr, but my Tumblr blew up during the Stranger Things epic. Because he was this, fat dad bod guy. Mm-hmm. And so many guys were like, oh my God, he is it. He is the thing. He is what I seek. And the idea that that's, quote, someone has to see past that is sort of funny to me.
But you have to remember, listen to the things that he's been told in the past about his body.
Of course.
And as an actor, there's going to be it's going to be a constant stream. So I can understand how it would be hard for him to... not just fight about his body constantly.
Yeah. And I mean, and this, by the way, is just him. They obviously didn't talk to her for this particular article. And so it is just his point of view. And I am curious how she would have put it. Like,
well, I'm pretty sure that in a national or international news medium, she is not going to say, I liked him better fat.
right.
She is not going to say that.
But what if she really thinks
yeah,
about it?
we just have our speculation.
She went on that date. However, that does, I think, spark the next the next logical follow-up, which is, I guess there's a few parts to it because, so we've all seen Black Widow.
Mm-hmm. Black Widow.
I just right off the bat, I loved it. I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys.
I had a great time watching
I thought it was so much, it was fun. It was like,
And just as a side
funny.
note, it's the first IMAX movie I've seen since the pandemic.
Aw.
When the lights went down and the Marvel theme started playing,
Oh my goodness.
I started misting up.
Yeah.
I genuinely did. I was so excited to see the movie, yes, but it was like I'm tasting my old life again.
yeah.
This is a little piece that's been missing for over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really amazing. I got to see it twice, actually.
I will say because there's the first scene, and again, I don't think this gives anything away, but there's the first scene where it's in the past and David Harbour's character is lean. And I was confused. I was like, A, is that David Harbour? B, did they do something CGI? C, is that not David Harbour?
I
Is
think
that
they
a
made him look
stunt
younger.
double?
They youngified him, and I don't think they did anything to his body. I don't think, but they definitely brought his cheeks in digitally.
I'd be willing to bet they did some practical stuff with his body, just as far as like tight, like a tight undershirt to sort of hold in and shape
It
a little
looked
bit.
different. Like later in the movie, he's this really bulky guy, just generally like lots of muscle, lots of fat. Like
One of the
clearly-
first shots you see of him after they reintroduce the character, he's running towards the camera.
Yeah.
During the jailbreak, and you see his body moving in a way you have never seen.
That's going to become a
Marvel
GIF, by the way.
character move.
That's 100% going to become a Chub Chaser GIF.
But it also was not. It was not comedic.
No.
No, it
I
wasn't
think it would have
treated
been
as funny.
super easy for them to lean into a comedy
I
of the
loved
body.
how they did it. Because like Don's saying, like they didn't like the only. Let me just say, I thought the movie was brilliantly directed. I can't remember Kate something. I wish I could remember her name, but the director was fucking phenomenal. They didn't make a joke out of his body at any point except when he's trying to squeeze into the suit. But they have made his entire character
age joke, not a fat
exactly.
joke.
It's his obsession with his past.
Yeah,
because he's always talking about how he used to be the Red Guardian and how he would fight Captain America. He's obsessed with his own self-image about his role as a hero.
I tend to be a little obsessive about like fat jokes, especially around clothing, and I did not feel.
Well, it's the litmus test that
put
Trevor
out at
came
all.
up with, which is, does this joke still work if it's with a thin character?
Yeah.
And I think it totally, well, the joke of him not fitting in the suit doesn't, but the fact that he's trying to fit into the suit because he's obsessed with his past, his like faded glory, that does.
That not fitting into the suit is a metaphor for not fitting into his former life.
Sure, exactly.
I also want to talk about real quick the scene we saw in the trailer way back when. We mentioned it earlier, where his former wife, quote unquote, turns to him over the table and goes like, "You got fat," right? In the context of the trailer, it seemed kind of insulting.
It was a fat
in the
joke.
context of the movie, I don't
Totally
think
not.
it was at all. It was sort of like, "Oh, you got fat."
But it's,
know,
and
like,
she immediately says, so this is what I mean about the directing, because the way that it's played, there's so many ways to shoot a line like that. If you're going for comedy or for a different result. And the way that they do it in the movie, first of all, that she follows it up immediately with, but still good. And she's got a smile on her face and she's looking at him with like affection.
Adoration.
Yeah, she's not laughing. Nobody at the table laughs or like cracks a smile. Like it's a moment of affection where she's acknowledging that she did find him attractive, even though it was a fake marriage. Like they weren't actually. And the way that it's done in the movie is that the camera it's not on him or her when
on
she
a
says the line.
family.
It's on the daughter who needs to know that this was a real family, watching her parents interact. And so this line is played off camera, and then they pan across to the mom when she says the line, but still good. And it lands on that because that's the important part.
Yep.
It's brilliantly directed.
And I think it's also important to acknowledge that, people's bodies absolutely change as they get older. And most people are not thrilled with the changes that come with age. And this is a really great affirmation that, of course, your body changed. And the way your body changed was you got fat. That's just a fact. And that follow-up, but still good.
Yeah.
Love it.
I feel like there are 1,000 chasers out there that would just go hog wild for a fat Thor and Red Guardian team up
And
movie.
women. I mean, the fat Thor thing among women on my Tumblr. Wow.
I think there was a lot of cohesion. I think that's the only thing we can really identify as something that's like the chemistry between the cast members in tandem with the writing, in tandem with the directing and the way everything was constructed, just really fun, engaging. I thought they handled the moment really well. It wasn't a big deal. The scene that Don's talking about when they're breaking him out of prison, like he's like running in slow motion with this dramatic music, but it's not like, if they wanted that to be funny, they would have lingered on the shot longer. But it's like a 2-second long shot. It's just there because it's a dramatic moment. Yeah. Nothing more.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, anyway, loved Black Widow. I think we should move on though, because we got a whole show to do. So next up, we have this article from WebMD.
Yes. Which references my favorite absurdity, the quote unquote obesity paradox.
Yes, exactly.
It's back. We need I think we need a musical sting for the obesity paradox. Finally, we have something to use that music for.
Coming in October from Paramount.
So for those of you unfamiliar with the obesity paradox, that is the radical finding that often that quote unquote obese people actually have better health outcomes in some situations.
Yeah.
And this is so absurd.
How can that be?
An alternate universe for the medical profession.
So in this
that it's called that it actually has a name and a syndrome.
Yeah.
This specific instance is obese men have better outcomes for advanced prostate cancer than non-obese men.
Right. By about what?
It was roughly 30%.
No, almost 30%.
30%? Yeah.
And we're talking about metastatic cancer, so the cancer has spread, has metastasized.
Right.
And basically, obese men did better almost 30% of the time.
But here's the thing. I think it still has the same, like as much as I want to embrace like the it's something of this, it still has the same problem to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is that they didn't measure the men's BMI when they first were diagnosed. So they don't actually know if they were also
if they're always fat?
Yeah. Like they don't know that. So they just know.
It could be radical weight gain during prostate cancer.
Well, a number of reasons.
They said the researchers stressed that no one is advising men to pack on pounds as a defense against prostate cancer.
You know what this reminds me of? It would be as if, imagine it's well, maybe not 100 years ago, but imagine there was, new radical scientific studies says that some women are smarter than men. And
the female paradox.
The gender paradox. But scientists caution that men should not be getting gender reassignment surgeries to try to get more intelligent. Stop it. Just stop it.
Of course, obviously.
It's just this nonsense bias that every time something doesn't fit with the model that fat equals death, we have to disregard it as an outlier.
Right. I think that's the main takeaway from this for me was not so much that, like being fat might protect you. Okay, but they don't know that either. Like it's the same causation versus correlation. Like they just don't know.
Yeah, but
for me, the takeaway was more that that this is even having to be news on its own. Like, oh my God, this obesity paradox thing shows its head again. Like, can you believe it?
But here's the difference, Michael, between the whole, because we've talked about the causation, correlation thing. But what's really important here is if they had found that fat people did worse, they would have said, well, of course they're fat.
Yes.
But the fact that fat people did better, they are looking for every way to disprove that causation.
Yes, it's a very,
because that can't stand.
Yeah.
It's a completely different viewpoint on the exact same.
Well, then it must be wrong.
Issue. Yeah.
It reminds me of, this is a point I've mentioned before in my book and in my seminars, that, my ex at one point wanted to do a psychological research study for his PhD program at Yale. And he ran into this roadblock from his advisor. He said, you can't do that study. And my ex said, well, why not? He said, well, look, imagine you were trying to do a study that brushing your teeth with green toothpaste turns your hair green. We already know the answer to that. It doesn't. And if your findings show that it does, you got it wrong. And if your findings show that it doesn't, we already knew that. So don't do the study.
This is a scientist?
This was the head of the PhD program of psychology at Yale.
Wow.
You don't need to do that study because we already know the answer. It's crap. And again, if your findings prove otherwise, we know your findings are wrong.
I feel like that's almost like a culture of higher education is like if you've been around longer, then I'm right and you're wrong. And but almost as that's a hazing ritual.
But that's not unique to higher education. You could find that in steam fitters. You can find that in the steam fitters.
Just if I've been around longer.
Yeah. And that's why if you look at the history of scientific revolutions, most of the significant contributions come from either people outside the field or people who are new to the field. It is almost never people who have been in the field for 50 years.
It's almost like once you've been in the longer you've been in a field, the more entrenched you become as part of the status quo. Yeah. What a concept. Once you are the status quo, you will defend your position.
Well, and I feel like you also have more self-image to lose if you take a risk of some kind. Like suddenly ego becomes a factor where it's like, oh, if I stick my neck out for this crazy theory, then people are going to laugh at me or discredit me.
There's that, but then there's just the belief in orthodoxy.
Yeah.
I mean, fat equals death. Easy. See, done.
We know that it's true. And if you don't find that, then you got it wrong.
Exactly. We know that it's true. And if it's not, you're wrong.
Well, you'll find a link to that on our website. Yeah. We do have something for Fat Watch.
Yeah, we do.
Yay. Fat Watch 2021.
It's happening again.
It's happening. It's every week. It's here. So this is from the New York Post, and I feel like we've had a lot of really terrible things from the New York Post.
Yeah,
I think it's important to acknowledge that this is good, but it kind of has like mom who's trying to understand you energy to it. Because while it's good, there is some of the language in it. I was like, it is the New York Post, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it is an article highlighting plus size travelers speaking out about flying while fat.
Yes. And they expand on other aspects of travel and vacations, but definitely starting with this, a lot of things that we've talked about as far as like seat size and other things like that. The first quote is, whenever I'm traveling and I have to ask for a seatbelt extender or for an extra large hotel bathrobe, I feel like I'm getting the unwelcome mat, as opposed to, I think, specifically talking about like vacations and maybe amenities that, thin people with thin privilege would get as luxuries. Like, oh, have this thing, have this free bathrobe. It's luxurious, have this whatever. There's the opposite experience for a lot of people who are fat who have to basically either accept that they're not going to get those amenities or like have to ask for other versions of those amenities that kind of get like tossed their way, like a seatbelt extender. Like that's an uncomfortable ask for a lot of people, probably for most people. And that just makes that first class ticket that you got feel kind of like it just mars the experience.
Yeah, I have so many things to say about this. Let's start with the bathrobe. I mean, this is the reason that when we go to a hotel, I can fit in the bathrobe. Well, I mean, I'm kind of big for their bathrobe because I feel like the bathrobe is cut for some like tall statuesque woman. and because it's a robe, I can still kind of wear it. But this is why Trevor packs his own bathrobe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as far as the airline seat, this is very similar to the automobile thing I was referencing before, which is for example, a lot of chubs will tell me, and I am in shock and disbelief at this, but they tell me it's so, that they can solve the seat width problem by upgrading to a higher class of service. That like, oh no, I could never fit in coach, but I fit in business class, but I fit in first class. And I'm like, if you say so, I don't see how 2 inches, which is literally the seat size difference, it is literally 2, maybe 3 inches wider, is suddenly solving all your problems, especially if you're hippie and they're squeezing the tray table is in the side and it's hard and it's squeezing your thighs. Dom, what do you say?
I mean, I have traveled first class. I had no issue with the first class seat, but it's not just a little wider. It's also that there's more space between the seats.
There is.
So my shoulders aren't pressing up against people.
I got to tell you, I do not find first class and business class travel for me. I mean, I'm pretty wide at the top. My shoulders are pretty wide. I don't find any accommodation for width. And I still find myself like the seat isn't tight for me, but I'm not experiencing spaciousness, which is what I would expect to experience in first class. And it's still like, oh, what I do get for my money is I get acres of counter space. I don't need that. Why don't you just give me a bigger friggin' seat? It's so dumb. And I really don't understand that mindset of we're going to give you enough space to hold a 5-person conference, but we're going to still give you this tiny little chair.
Right. Yeah.
One of the worst experiences, I don't think I talked about this on our travel episode. One of the worst experiences I ever had traveling, Someone had suggested I sit in the emergency row, right? But without mentioning the fact that the seats on the emergency row were enclosed seats, meaning there was nowhere for your butt couldn't spread out.
The arms are hard plastic and they do not lift.
Yeah,
it's like a
and
wall.
That's the first time I've actually traveled where my waist was in agony. I was in physical agony in that seat. I asked, and if you knew me, you would know how much pain was necessary for me to do this. I leaned over to the aisle and asked a stranger woman if she would trade seats with me. And she said no.
Oh, wow. Right? Fuck her.
And then halfway through this flight, I think she saw the expression of agony on my face. And then she asked me if I would trade with her. Oh my God. I was like, that little moment of kindness saved my life, but damn you, I wish you'd done it from the start, you know? The airplane seats are not, they always talk about it in all these articles like a minor inconvenience. It is not a minor inconvenience.
It is the most important feature of the entire trip for you.
Well, and it is 3 weeks of stress before the flight coming back, as I'm getting ready for it. It's an extra stressor on me during the entire vacation because I'm thinking about the flight back. It's not a minor inconvenience.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole mentality of fat oppression is even though 46% of our customers don't fit in these seats, it's really their fault for having the wrong body. Because we are not putting fewer seats in our planes to accommodate half of our customers.
But I love that we're on the cutting edge and we beat the New York Post to this juicy scoop.
Yeah, exactly. And they do mention the Southwest Airlines.
I was just going to say.
It's not, I think we've said it before, but it bears repeating. Like you can book yourself 2 seats through their specific process. You have to put in a middle name that tells their
XS.
system XS.
Or you can just show up fat at the airport.
Or you can show up in the airport and get a free seat for free.
If they haven't oversold the flight.
No, not at all. So always, every single time.
So if you didn't book a second seat, you show up, I need a second seat, they will treat the flight as oversold, which it could already be oversold.
Of course it's oversold. It's Southwest.
It's always oversold.
It's always oversold.
But so they'll just account for that when they're asking for people to move to a later flight.
Yes. But moving on to our main subject. So this, I think, was initially suggested by a listener.
Yes.
This was Judd, right? Or was this somebody else?
This is somebody else.
Who wanted to know our takes on the difference. Basically, we're talking about how to interact with people at an event. If there's interest, if there's no interest, how do you reject people? How do you hit on somebody? How do you make that interaction? And I think a lot of our advice was very sort of direct and sort of like, this is what is helpful. But the perspective was that doesn't necessarily work the same for somebody who's an introvert, who doesn't interact with people generally.
And it got me thinking that would be an interesting topic to talk about, not only just events, but dating in general. If you're an extrovert versus you're an introvert, if you believe in such things.
Trevor sent this. So in our breakdown, it was, it was just this like, we're just going to talk about extrovert versus introvert. But then in the breakdown, Trevor, he sent this. The text of the link was extroverts be like. Oh, come on, fucking ads.
This is not.
It was this.
But how apropos?
Emu's Pink Windmill Kids. Can't stop the music.
But of course, what are we made our Pink Windmill Kids?
Hi, my name's Katrina. And my name is Hugh. I'm Sarah. I'm Emma.
You can just imagine their expressions.
These kids are like hyped up on crystal meth.
Coke.
And
They
they're
have to be on coke.
Well, no, but they're in a dance routine. They're like, hi, this is me.
Yeah, but it's.
Hi, you should want to meet me.
I've seen that musical theater face, and they take it to a whole new level.
But I should say that this is, for those of us who are extroverts, this is exactly how we are at events. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't figure out why you're running.
So I think we're going to get to, this probably has to come up in the discussion, but the idea of how do we, who in the room identifies as an introvert? Let's start with that.
I do.
I think I do, but I'm closer to the middle of that spectrum.
Well, let's add the disclaimer real quick. There's no such thing as introvert or extrovert. Everybody's on a spectrum.
And these are made up categories, right?
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And we tend to move around on that spectrum over the course of a lifetime. So,
And in a particular situation.
so it's the better question is, what do you feel like today? Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Well, and
today?
I had a hard time, like I said, I've never been soaked in this model, maybe because I'm an extrovert and therefore have a certain amount of, I'm going to call it extrovert privilege. Because you never hear extroverts saying like, it's so hard to be an extrovert, but I see a lot of stuff on Tumblr or wherever about like, introverts and like, it's all about
I think during the quarantine, you got a lot of that.
Well, but how I see it, go ahead.
So Dan and I have identified ourselves as extroverts. Michael's on the fence. Trevor, we kind of cut you off there. You were the first one to self-identify as feeling like an introvert.
Okay, so to go with made-up categories. So I'm an introvert, but I'm also a Gemini. So I
it changes by the hour.
One extreme or the other. And I would say, like you were talking about, like over a lifetime. So I would say that when I am first meeting people, I am an introvert. But when I am comfortable with them, I go to like extreme extrovert.
I like the distinction that, because I think it's, like Don's saying, like it's too much of a blanket statement to look at introvert, extrovert as enjoying interaction with people versus not. Like, I don't think that's applicable at all. I think it's more the idea that if you're interacting with somebody, and let's say in both cases you're enjoying the conversation, typically introverts will say that by the end of that conversation, they're exhausted. Even if they had a fantastic time, even if it was even if they loved hanging out with this person, by the end of it, they're like, oh my God, I need to go off by myself and recharge.
Yeah. Whereas I would say like, great, now what do we do?
More.
Right.
How do we keep this going?
And I think that interaction is something you can distinguish people from. Because like I love social interaction. I love hanging with my friends. I do a lot of things to try and keep that going. But afterwards, I am fucking exhausted. After we do the podcast, I'm exhausted. After we do Space Thieves, D&D, I'm exhausted. And I had a great time, but then I just need to not be around people.
Yeah. And for me as an extrovert, or at least that when that label is applied, I do get energy from groups. And if I'm in a social situation, I can stop doing that and then go teach a class. Like, that's fine with me.
And then like if I have a call for work, I'll be on the call and afterwards I'm just like wiped out and it's hard for me to go back to work.
I'll say even Dan, like I must feel like the more socialization you have, the more you want. Whereas like we'll be out and then you'll be like, okay, what are we doing now? And I'll be like, I want to go home, please. I talked to two people and now
my battery's low.
Yeah.
So if we apply this to, I mean, yes, we can do the event side. I think maybe we should start with that, but then we can broaden out to dating because I think we've talked about events quite a bit in the last few weeks. But if you're at an event and you're an introvert, or you identify that way, if you feel like maybe you like social interaction, but you're exhausted afterwards, or maybe you don't like social interaction with strangers, which I fall into that category. I don't mind meeting people, but it takes so much effort and energy and mental focus to meet a stranger, and you're in your head and you're like, am I saying the wrong thing? Am I saying the right thing? Am I standing in a weird way? Am I breathing right? Like it's just so many things that are running through your head. I'm sure it presents differently for different people. But in my case, like if for instance, let's take a situation that's likely to come up at Big Bayou. Michael and I go down to the pool, and it's that, to me, that concept of like, let's go down to the pool is fucking terrifying. Not because I'm like, oh, I, don't like sitting in the sun, which I don't like sitting in the sun, or, oh, I don't like being in a pool atmosphere, which I don't really like that either. It's very specifically because now I am opening myself up to anybody else's idea of what an interaction should be. And having to be like on watch for all of that stuff. And like, I don't know, it sounds extremely stressful. I still want to do it because I feel like I will have a good time. But like the idea of like sitting down there and like, okay, what's going to happen? And maybe nothing. Like maybe you'll just sit there and it'll just be nice.
What's so incredible for me is that I've spent so many years oblivious to that point of view, where it's like, well, the great part about going down to the pool, Michael, is you get to talk to people. Because I'm kind of with you on the other stuff. Like I got to get wet. It's going to be cold when I get in. It's going to be cold when I get out. I got to bring a towel. I got to just this. Blah, 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 blah. But I get to talk to people. Okay, I'll go. Which is why the hospitality suite at an event or a cocktail party is exciting for me. It's fun for me. I love meeting people because you get to discover things. People you've known for 20 years, you don't so much discover things.
True. Yeah.
See, what Michael was talking about with going to the pool, so I totally relate to that. And I find it fun, but then I'm like, okay, I am depleted, low battery, like my little red light is blinking. And what I find draining about that is like strategizing, leaving, because there's been times, especially at like bigger Vegas, where just leaving the pool takes like
a half an hour.
Yeah, half an hour or even like 45 minutes because you just keep seeing people and they want to talk to you. And you're just, as you're like trying to get back to your room, you keep running into people.
Like leapfrogging.
Well, this is also deepened by the fact that we've been going to these events for quite a while. So we do know a lot of people. And it's not like strangers are coming up and stopping him, but like people we know.
But strangers too.
Strangers
sometimes.
too. Well, because you're hot, baby. You're just
But
hot.
it's just like the extraction process can even be exhausting.
Which is why we rent a helicopter and extract him.
Yes. So the thing that kind of it stresses me out in looking forward about like all of this stuff, and is that when I get like when my little red light goes off and the battery is low, my ability to be my mood drops and I actually I get short with people. I'm less patient. I probably come across as like, I want to be anywhere else but here, which is kind of true. And it's not personal. It's just, for instance, Don, Trevor, I think you guys both know Karen. I think Dan, you've met Karen before.
I met Karen, I think.
Really good friend of mine. She's in the gaming group. We do all kinds of things together. She listens to the podcast. She'll probably hear this. Hello, Karen. So we worked together also, and she came over to pick up a hard drive, and it was on this weekend where I was so busy with 1,000 things. I didn't get enough sleep. There was a bunch of stuff going on, and the pickup of the hard drive was right between two events that I was running from one to the other. And so it was this moment of like, this is not a welcome social interaction. And it had nothing to do with Karen. It was like, I love Karen. She's amazing. She's one of my best friends. But in this moment, I do not want to see anyone at all. I don't have the energy to manage this. And so I probably came across like I was kind of like mad about something or short or like that's probably how it comes across. And it's not personal. And that's the stress of going into a situation like this where I'm aware of that and I'm aware of how that comes across to people. And I don't have a lot of control over that except to try and just leave and go recharge or take a nap or something.
Not to frighten Michael with this, but so in my many, we've been going to these events for years. So something that I'm mindful now of at events is I was at an event. I guess someone tried to say hi to me at some point, and I did not hear them. I did not see them. And then I interacted with them later, and I was very friendly with them. And they were like, oh my God, I thought you were such a bitch because I said hi to you before and you ignored me, but like, you're actually really nice.
I had the more serious version of that where I was looking across the room at this guy. He was like staring at me, and I'm like, I'm bad visually with faces anyway. And we were like 50 feet across a room. And so I looked, and then somebody else said something. I looked away. And then forever after, he was like, oh no, you dissed me. You completely dissed me that event. You pretended you didn't know me. I'm like, okay, sorry. I guess we're done. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did I interrupt your story, sweetie?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Don,
where are you
falling in all of this?
Well, because you even if you are an extrovert, I usually in the room, I'm the most extrovert, but maybe I'm not. I don't know.
I consider myself to be, there's a caveat on me. I think I'm a receptive extrovert, right? Where if I feel welcome, if I feel like someone's open to contact and conversation, I'm totally into it. But I also don't feel the need to sort of force someone or drag someone into an interaction.
So I shouldn't use the handcuffs and the stair railing?
Yeah, that's usually a bad idea until they say yes.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I do that.
Second interaction.
I know a lot of extroverts who do. Right?
Tell me more about that.
It's like a cat with the allergic, right? It's like, I feel like talking, you're not talking to anyone. You're pinned up against the wall trying to avoid eye contact. I think you need interaction. That's what you're missing. And they go for them. I see that a lot.
Well, at an event, I think what's going on is they think you're hot. But I mean, if that's...
I'm talking day-to-day life.
But if you're talking day-to-day life, it may not be that. Yeah.
I've been the victim of that before.
Where it's the well-meaning extrovert thinking that you want to be included, but you just don't know how. So I'm going to be nice and I'm going to come at you and I'm going to talk at you.
Yeah, but I mean, if someone wants to... Usually if I sense that someone's trying to shut that down, I can hear that. That's very obvious.
Not all extroverts have that
No,
sort
no,
of
you're-
empathy,
you're right,
you
you're
know?
right.
I'm talking in sort of a generalized way here.
Well, I just think it's a human thing. Like, I think I'm bothering this person. Maybe I should stop bothering them. Like, I think that's just a human thing, introvert or extrovert.
You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how often a well-meaning intention can steamroll basic observation.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
So as far as, because I think the real question about this was, how do you handle an interaction, positive or negative? Like how do you just manage that as an introvert? I think that was the main part of that question was, if for instance, somebody's talking to you and, you want out of that conversation, as an introvert or somebody who has a very hard time dealing with anxiety that prevents you from being direct with people. Because I think that was more where this was coming from, which I don't think is intrinsic to being an introvert, by the way. No. I don't think that's necessarily the same, although it's probably quite common. I don't know that I have a lot of advice for this, except that I really pick my moments of when, like I find that planning and preparing myself for when a thing is going to happen, like, okay, I'm only going to go down to the pool when I'm feeling really good. And I know that I have lots of energy and I know that I can, like, preparing myself for what's ahead so that if a conversation comes up with somebody and I feel like, I just want to be at my best.
Well, I think you've said this so many times on the podcast, Michael, don't should yourself. Like, I think a lot of what people deal with is not that they want to go down to the pool, but that they should go down to the pool or they should go to the hospitality suite or they should be being more social. And if you force yourself, that's just never going to go well.
Yeah.
You're not going to have this epiphany in the middle of shooting yourself like, oh, now I'm having fun. Something's going to happen in between there.
And you can't control what other people do or say or how they interact with you. All you can control is how you do it. And that's part of like preparing yourself for going into a situation is just like, okay, I'm going to set myself up the best that I can. And the rest is just however it goes. I can't control what other people are going to do.
What I'd like to know as an extrovert is how do you want me to disengage? Because I'm perfectly fine. And I think I may have even said like, if I'm bothering you, I don't have to, like, we don't have to have this conversation. I can go get a drink.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
That's like a good conversation.
Now that to me seems like they could interpret that as being snotty or being snide. Well, if you don't want to talk to me, then I mean, like, I don't mean it that way, but sometimes people.
I have been on the tail end of that where I have offered to someone who I got the sense like they weren't wanting to talk at the moment. I said, like, do you want me to back off?
Yeah.
And they were mortally offended.
Exactly.
Cut off all communication with me.
So how do you want me to handle
I was a
it?
snotty person that was judging them.
Bingo.
And I think the other way that goes bad is also, and again, I think there's a distinction between people with social anxiety and introvert. Like those are not intrinsically the same. But if we're talking about social anxiety, the likelihood that somebody's going to accept that offer, even if they want to, is basically zero.
That's my
because
point.
that would be an uncomfortable situation too.
Exactly. So I don't know how to language it to give them a defensible out.
I think, and this is not your way because you're just a very direct person that just wants to be upfront with
That's
people.
why I'm asking.
Which is, I try to be that too. But I think if you're sensing that from somebody, it could just be as easy as like, oh my God, I've been having a great time talking to you, but I've got to go do a thing. And it's just a basic excuse. And it sucks to have to assume that that's where somebody wants to go.
Well, what I don't like about that and why I don't do it is that I've taken the choice away from them. I've made an assessment and I hope I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I don't think there is.
There's no good way
I don't
to do
think
this.
there is any good answer here. Like it really comes down to how you read the situation. Like if you feel like, I don't know. I don't think there is any great answer.
I think I don't think there's a solution for the extrovert. I think as an introvert, as someone who is very introverted, and I can really understand where this listener was kind of coming from. It's just, I think a lot of exposure therapy and like in terms of like events and stuff, just going and like figuring out how to take care of yourself, and like in terms of disengaging, just like also listening for what you need. Cause like, especially with like Bigger Vegas, the pool, the, desert heat, like to disengage, I'll usually be like, oh, like this has been great, but like I really need to get a drink. It's so hot.
Yeah. And something I would follow up with on that is one way to say it is give yourself permission to leave.
Yeah.
Like leave the room, like it's okay. And even if you spend 5 minutes there, it's okay to leave. You know, just it's better that than spend another half hour and then hate it and never go back. And the other thing is you don't have to think of it as leaving. You could think of it as just changing the channel. You're going to go to a different room. You're going to go to a different venue. You're going to do a different thing. You're just changing the channel.
Yeah, that sort of eliminates the FOMO feeling of like, oh my God, but I paid to be here, and so I got to do everything. No, you paid to have a good time.
I think one of the most amazing things I ever heard in one of my seminars is this chaser who by the time he showed up to my seminar, it was his third event. The first event, he never left his room. He was so terrified.
Oof. Oh, you mentioned that.
The second year he went to the event, he hid behind plants. You know, like in the lobby, and you know, and so finally, this is his third time coming, and like he actually sat in a chair in my seminar. Wow. You know, so he was interacting with people. But I think that maybe goes with what Trevor was saying about exposure therapy. You know? But he didn't quit, you know, because he knew he wanted to have this
new
experience.
environments are scary.
Yeah, they can.
Understandable.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we may come back to that. Hopefully, there's something in there.
It's a big topic. There's a lot to cover.
Yeah, set yourself up as best you can. I think that's my last piece of advice would just be like, learn the things that make you feel good on your own, and then do as many of those things as you can to just set yourself up in any given situation. For me, like I just get kind of like bubbly and silly if I have a drink or two, and I'm fine with that. And it helps me unwind. I know that's not everybody's solution, and I don't have any amount of like, you know, dependency. Like I'll forget to drink sometimes if I'm at an event where everybody's drinking. I'll be like, oh, I'm having a good time and it doesn't matter. But if I do, I tend to relax a lot. So I know that, and I can kind of manage that. Maybe not so much in the desert heat of bigger Vegas.
Well, the other thing you see on that is you see people with tankards of alcohol.
Yeah,
because that's how they know how to show up.
And that's tough. It's like you don't want to create that dependency if there's an issue there. But you know, there are other tactics that you can use to try and just make it easy for yourself.
Yes.
Do we have a tip for the day?
We do.
We do. So maybe for your exposure therapy for Bigger Vegas, part of that will be getting some
literal exposure.
Yeah, literal exposure. So I found this website. I first found the designer of these products on Instagram. It's called Cut to Me, and it is all sorts of spandexy stuff from like bikini bottoms to jock straps to singlets to tearaway jock straps, which, you know, go off. I feel like that's like why
exploding jock straps.
Yeah.
There's one of the ones on their site. What is it called? It's a lifter thong.
Yes.
It lifts and projects, which initially I thought it said protects. And I was like, how does that protect? Nope, projects. Yes. It points your junk outwards.
But they go up to 8XL.
Yay.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't want to speak for I think like one or, you know, I think maybe just one guy. So it takes a little longer. It says all styles are made to order and may take between 14 and 21 days to ship. But I think because it is made to order, if you need bigger than 8XL, I would reach out because they are very dedicated to making sure all of the products are accessible to all sizes. So once again, I don't want to speak for the guy, but like, I don't think it would hurt to reach out.
Yeah, investigate.
And there's a lot of fun stuff.
I'm just trying to picture what it means to project out. Is that Pinocchio groin?
No. No, that's exactly what it is. Here.
Oh no. No.
Well, what I should say is that if you ever went to, you know, a Hawkeye underwear store, that's what most of the underwear is designed to do. It is the way the seam is made. It is designed to sort of heft things up and forward.
It's leveraging your balls to be a platform for your dick to rest on.
Think of it as a hammock. Didn't you call it a banana hammock at one point?
Yeah.
That's what that's how
I
it's
got that from
sewn.
Scrubs.
That's how it's sewn.
Yeah.
Oh dear. All right, we have to be quick for our bit today.
Yes.
All right. So we are going to do Myers-Briggs personality tests. We're not going to do the full test. We're going to talk about what each of us think we are and what we each think the others are. We don't have time to get in the history of it, but disclaimer, the Myers-Briggs personality test is bullshit. It is not scientific, should not be scientific. The fact that they use it for employment interviews and psychological tests is ridiculous. So what I wanted to do is go around and we'll discuss each of us real quick.
And we wrote down answers if you want to before the show.
Before
we talked about the whole introvert and extrovert thing. So I think that's going to be telling.
So let's discuss Michael first, shall we?
No.
So
I've revealed so much.
what we're going to do is each of us are going to discuss what we see Michael is in each of these categories. There are 4 categories each. So the first one is extrovert versus introvert.
Do I get to give you like a dinger, like if you got it right or wrong? Like
Well, we're going to say what we think, and then you're going to tell us what you think you are.
Okay.
So E or I is the first one, extrovert or introvert.
So I said extrovert.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I said introvert. I think we were answering these, comparing them to ourselves.
I think extrovert too. Because that's sort of the format I know Michael from. Is usually he's the one who is gathering groups, organizing people, and all that sort of
When
thing.
I said introvert, because you talk about recharging after being with people.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you're both right. I think this is so. I said introvert for all the reasons I stated earlier, but I do fall close to the middle of the category. Like I don't get as much social anxiety. Like Don knows me in organizing game groups with people I already am friends with, and that's a very I love doing that. It's a very easy thing for me to do. But I still
we got
have to
an
recharge
I for
after.
Michael. Michael's an I. The next one is intuitive versus sensors. N for intuitive, S for sensors. Intuitives tend to focus on possibilities in the big picture. Sensors are more sort of realistic, grounded, focusing on facts kind of people. So for Michael, I put sensor. I think he's sort of more of a planner, logical. Like he needs to know what he's walking into when he walks into things.
Okay.
I said intuitive just because filmmaking, big picture, what if. I don't know. I think these kind of go hand in hand because you can't be successfully intuitive without a whole bunch of practical things in place. So
I said intuitive kind of for the same reason as Dan, because director, Space Thieves, I feel like there's a lot of...
I think I'm split right down the middle.
I would agree. I would agree.
I put down intuitive because I do find it an absolute necessity to think about the big picture. Like that is intrinsic to who I am, probably more so than planning out the details, but I do both.
Yeah,
I can't not do both. Yeah.
Next is T versus F, thinker versus feeler.
I said feeler for
Yeah,
Michael.
thinkers are thinking, feelers are feelers.
Yeah. I suspect you probably all put the same answer.
I put feeler.
Feeler.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And the last category is judger versus perceiver, J versus P. Judgers tend to be organized and prepared, like to stick to plans. Perceivers prefer to keep their options open and be able to act spontaneously. So I labeled you a judger.
Judgy.
Judgy.
I said perceiver just because I think you value your spontaneity. You talked about all the times, getting together with your family. Like, can we just leave the plans open? Can we just do what we do?
I said perceiver because of the family thing, but I think also just because I feel like you were very often thrown into situations where you have to be a perceiver, where it's just like everything's gone sideways and like, okay, let's just roll with this.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of both. I put judger because I'm always kind of the opposite of what Trevor just said. I'm always trying to plan things.
Yes.
And then it doesn't necessarily happen. But I'm like the things that I do for myself, I try and plan them out to the T. And if any of you know me at all, I get really, really stressed out if I'm late for something. I hate being late for things.
So Michael, what is your code? Tell me the combo.
INFJ.
INFJ. You are the counselor.
Oh,
Work is to inspire others to achieve great things. It's very much like a fortune cookie description.
Sure, and nobody's going to say that's not me.
Exactly.
I believe that's also like doctors, teachers, like people who
ideally,
because I'm familiar with this test.
Yeah, I mean, just every combo has been given sort of an arbitrary label.
Yeah.
The ENFJ is the teacher, the INFP is the healer, blah, blah, blah.
So INFJ, because I've done this test several times. I've done it over several years, and I always get INFJ.
Oh, really? That's what I predicted exactly for you.
Oh.
I said Trevor is INFP.
I said INFP.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Inner nuances foster journeys.
What about Dan?
I'm straight across the board, ENTJ.
I said ESTJ, but otherwise,
Yeah.
But those are the two that you were like, they're the same.
They're
like,
the same.
Yeah.
You're ENTJ?
Says me. But I mean, I agree with Michael. The N and the S are.
You are the field marshal. And Trevor's the healer.
And Don, I had ESTP for Don.
I put ENTP myself.
Okay. But I feel like the N and the S are they're sort of intrinsically related.
You can't,
which makes me the inventor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So once again, this is about as reliable as horoscope. No, horoscopes are probably more reliable because they are actually more open-ended.
Are you? What's your Myers-Briggs category? I don't know, but I'm an Aries.
Yeah.
So if you are curious what Myers-Briggs personality type you are, there are plenty of resources online to take the test yourself and find out. But take it again an hour later, you'll be something else.
Also, you might take it as an opportunity to look into different personality tests or workability tests, some of which are far more useful than others.
Tell us your favorite personality test. Where can you do that, Trevor? I'll tell you, Trevor. We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcast. Write us reviews. I want more reviews.
Yes.
Also, the other one, the other cast.
Podchaser. I almost said Chip Chaser.
See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week. Maybe you're watching Black Widow at a movie theater, and then there's someone smoking a cigar in front of you and laughing. They're laughing at the movie, and it's disrupting your experience. And you've had enough because you're with your family. So you tap on their shoulder, and it's Michael, and he just and you're terrified because why is Michael there? And he just takes this big fat cigar out of his mouth and blows smoke in your face. And he says,
"Watch out."
There'll be a lot of coughing too.
What image are you trying to paint of me?
It's like you described Michael to a T.
I've been thinking about Cape Fear a lot lately.
Hose, all of you.